Good evening. The time is now 7 p.m. I'd like to call this Board of Selectmen meeting for August 23rd to order and ask that you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've done call to order, Pledge of Allegiance, roll call. Kevin Cunningham. Absent tonight is Kathy Tender. She did call, say she wouldn't make it tonight. And then the next up is item C, to approve the meeting minutes from 7:28 and also meeting minutes from 8:09.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for 7/28 and 8/9/2021.
All right, you made a motion, I'll second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Item D, public comment. Okay. We'll go into item E, which is old business. Discuss and act on dispersion of America Cares American Recovery Act monies. At the last meeting we had, we did discuss and vote on some of those items, and then we would bring back some other ones to the table for further discussion and further data. The three things that we do have on for discussion for tonight is the Water Pollution Control Authority. We had made an approximate number for $3.25 million for what we might need to upgrade. You'll note in your packet there is an actual total that's listed for $3.4 million, very in-depth. There were things that were not on the first list, but I had an oversight on the cutting and clearing easements. That was also $90,000. But there's more accurate numbers. I can run through them very quickly for the public. We were looking to get a new 335 kilowatt generator at the North Plant, approximately $100,000. New secondary tank at the North Plant, approximately $600,000. We wanted to refurbish two existing secondary tanks at the North Plant, approximately $120,000. The new generator at the Cemetery Road Pump Station, approximately $30,000. A new roof of the sludge handling building at the North Plant, approximately $60,000. A new generator at the DOT pump station, approximately $20,000. And then add a generator and replace the rusty dry well at the dog track pump station, approximately $200,000. Install a emissions monitoring SCADA at all pump stations, approximately $400,000. New boiler at the North Plant sludge handling building, approximately $80,000. Exhaust fan at the North Plant, approximately $60,000. GIS data collection updates, approximately $100,000. Cutting and clearing easements, approximately $90,000. So far, that list includes up to $1.86 million. The next one is, next grouping is add second floor to the Village Lab building, $200,000. Infiltration and inflow study to locate, to repair the manholes, pipes where the rain and groundwater are entering into the system, that's $500,000. Upgrade electrical and monitoring control units, $800,000. Miscellaneous repair due to corrosion, ladders, doors, $20,000. AC, central air, HVAC systems, $20,000. So the grand total that was listed is $3.4 million, approximately. I think I included in your list, and if you take a look at that page, a few pages back, if you do have it, fine. If not, I can give you a copy of this. But it's a list of all of our 5-year capital for water pollution control. You'll see that these are items that have been listed throughout here, and this is also in relationship to what information they also received from Fuss and O'Neill. They wanted to make sure they had everything included in approximate numbers. So it's something that will really take a lot of that 5-year capital and take care of it all.
The only two things that weren't on here is on the bottom list, the infiltration inflow study.
For $500,000?
That wasn't on capital,
Right.
Right, in the AC, central air
Right.
system. Where would that be?
Well, they didn't have it listed as was on a wish list for 5-year capital. So they'd like to have it on there, but if they're taking care of it through here, then they're all set.
Yeah, right. But with, the AC is for where? The HVAC system?
Those are for the actual main plant.
The main, the one plant? Is that?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, I have no problem taking care of capital improvement projects. That's great.
Okay.
So with that,
Entertain
if we
motion.
were to proceed with that,
Mhm.
we still have monies left over.
Correct.
With that and the.
Yes. If we were to do this one here from the 4.476,
We have to six, well.
well, we already allocated 350, I'm sorry. We already allocated out
25, I think,
75 for 2 different nonprofits.
and then 50 for rec.
Right, so that's 125.
25.
So if we did all of these tonight, we'd still have $601,000 available, so which I would recommend we hold back.
It's for,
Other items that come up while you still have until 2024 to expend.
oh, okay. Great. Because I was just going to ask if that could go into, if we had to expend it, could that go into the housing hardship?
That it would be, in other words, after the 2 nonprofits and
If we find that the revolving loan fund or the hardship.
if any of these need more money, we have more money for any of them.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. I would suggest that we do one item at a time to make a motion and approve or not,
Okay.
whichever you prefer.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the WBCA funding for $3.4 million.
Coming from America Care, America Recovery,
Exactly.
to be expended.
Yes.
You have made that motion, I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we can move on to the other 2 items which they had questions, we had questions on and wanted more follow-up. We'll take one at a time. The next one up is for support of economic development to create a small business revolving loan fund to be administered by Jordan and Kelly for eligibility, reviewed by Economic Development Committee for their approval. There was no Economic Development Commission meeting from lack of quorum, but I don't think, I do know that you did review that, Mary Ann, and you helped and aided in the modifications to the program. And for the public to know that that was something that we did before for economic development, I think it's kind of important. We've done it in the past. I think it's a great program, and as long as we gear it towards those in need, and that has to be vetted out, of course, by economic development to make sure that they comply with all of the guidelines that are set forth. So, you have the packet, rather lengthy one. So we called it the Town of Plainfield Business Revolving Loan Program with all the guidelines that are in it. And I'll say that my only comment to this whole thing is put together. It mirrors what was done in the past. It has definite federal guidelines to follow. One thing that by the way, I did also review this with the attorney. The attorney already looked at both of those. He said both of them fall within the guidelines are fine. One question that I have is the one item on direct loans on item G, where it talks about the interest rates not to exceed 3%.
So that I researched other revolving loan programs, and typically they were between 1% and 5%. So I just kind of left it right in the middle. But I do have a note in there where it's up to the board's discretion. It can be less or it can be more, depending on the situation, the specific situations, case by case. And obviously, over time, other programs may change, and that leaves us the flexibility to change that as need be.
Yeah, I think it was worded appropriate so that we can go up to 3%.
Yes.
That was my only comment on that part. Did you have?
I do. besides typos, we can go over those later.
Yep.
Direct. Under the municipality definitions, it says Town of Plainfield or its agent is the agent, program manager.
Yes, yeah, I can clarify that too.
The next page is program manager. It's item I in the definitions. And then item K says program manager, so
Thank you.
it seems like it's the same.
Yes.
And right below that, I have a question on number 6, application process.
Yep.
It's a $50 non-refundable application. So what happens if there are no funds at the time? Do you not accept the applications? Or
Yeah,
do you
there's
put
no
them on
funds
file?
available. Yeah, basically the idea is they would come in. Well, yes, we would tell them, I guess we could hold it on file and contact them.
Do you hold their $50? It's
If
not
there's no funds, we'll be transparent about that. So on the website, it may just say there's no funds available.
Okay.
We won't actively advertise it as.
Now, what if they apply with their $50 non-refundable payment and they don't get accepted, they're not eligible?
That's a very good point. So refundable might be the way, for sure.
For those two instances,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, yeah.
I did underline on number 9, eligible usage activities, working capital. I just underlined it because it seemed to think that, if somebody needs a loan for working capital, are we going to use discretion? Are they failing? Is this why they need working capital? Are they going under, or we're not going to get it back? Or
With that, it's more so going back to the fact that it's American Rescue Plan funding. So there's a lot of businesses that may be experiencing issues with staffing and things like that. It's, I will use your own discretion and review each application thoroughly and kind of decide based on that specific situation. So that one, we included that because COVID mostly.
No? Okay. Yeah. I just, when somebody gets this, they reads through, what can I do with this? And they see working capital, they, just apply to get working capital. So, yeah.
Right, yeah.
So we can use our discretion.
Right, yes.
Okay. That's all I have. It's not an application. Just type it. How did we come up with the amounts?
Amount of money available. I believe I thought of that only because that's how much we had last time from the state committee was $250,000.
How long ago was that?
Oh, God.
1999 was the first.
Yeah. Roughly 2000, 99, 2000. So it had been utilized, but basically we have to be sure that we do it the right way.
And was it the same minimum amount? Was it 25?
It was actually higher.
Was it?
The idea with this amount is basically it would allow us to help. Say, everyone requests the maximum amount, that's still 10 businesses.
Okay.
And then.
And once it gets going, then the program helps to put money back into itself.
Exactly. And you can almost think of it as a pilot in some ways, because then there may be other grants we can apply for that can go back into this program and things like that.
That's all I have.
So your questions were answered about the agents as a program manager.
Yeah, I think, right? That's on the next page.
Yep.
It says that.
Just wanted to make sure that all
Correct.
your questions or
So you
concerns were
didn't
answered.
answer, you wrote that down, but.
Yep. I think as long as
The
the
designated agent would be the program manager. then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
and the uses of with interest rates not to exceed gives at least a ceiling to which it would be discretionary amongst the commission to say you know, the type of thing that they're going for, is it something that could warrant, based on their business, a lower rate, like 1%?
Right.
So this also requires us to have lien on property, on whatever properties they put forward. So that's, and I was just going to get to you. Get some questions on, or concerns.
As far as having a lien on the property, what if the applicant is not the property owner? What if the business is not the property owner?
That would be up to the EDC to determine if, so if you didn't want to do it because of that, I would say that's how the vote would go. You want to make sure that you have something tangible versus, oh yeah, it's his, but we have our name and license underneath that. So that's really where you vet them out to say, is it viable or not?
And as far as backup documentation for the application, for example, Art asked about capital, working capital. What kind of documentation is going to be required to show that yes, indeed it is, we do need this working capital because of COVID? That did cause our problem.
Right. I think the backup data that they're bringing to the applicant, as bringing to the town, shows that what the hardship was most of the time now we're looking at having enough staffing. Sometimes it's they could have gone out of business because they didn't have enough staff to help and support what they're doing. People are having difficulties running their own business as a family with a mom and pop, but no one else to help and support them, and they're getting ragged. They're doing 60, 70 hours every week. So I think those are some of the other questions that need to be vetted out during the process to make sure that they can comply with COVID-19 and what's happened so far, not just in the past, but also as we go forward. So is there something where we're looking to help them by saying, if we're doing support and doing the job fairs, making sure that they get here for those job fairs so they can help get more staffing? Is this something we can help to advertise for certain businesses because they just need staff? And we do that all the time out front out here. We have flyers all the time for different businesses when they come in. So that's some of the questions that really need to be asked and vetted out during the applicant interview with the EDC.
Okay, and when the applications come through EDC, is the Board of Selectmen going to expect those applications to be fully vetted before it gets to the Board of Selectmen?
I would like to see the applicants bringing their documentation in so we could go back to a bank and pre-review, making sure what their status is. So yes, I think some of that has to be done prior to actually even coming in front of the EDC. I think it would be helpful. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. You say, okay, each and every month, thanks to the application, we'll see you next month. And we'll see.
No. What I meant was, is the Economic Development Commission the entity that is going to be tasked with going through the application review 100% thoroughly before it gets to the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In the past, it was actually, the Board of Selectmen weren't even involved. It was just EDC. So it would be helpful because that way we know what's going on with the business and how we can make sure we continue that support. But I think that would be the way to continue that process. Other question or concern?
No, just that this hasn't been to the EDC.
Yeah, I know.
Because
Yeah.
we didn't have a meeting last night.
Yep. Last Thursday. Yeah.
Would you like me to read it to you, Marianne? Interested applicants may request funding not to exceed $25,000 prior to final action by the Board of Selectmen. The Program Manager and Economic Development Commission will review all applications. Following that review, recommendations on applications, including recommended interest rate, will then be forwarded to the Board of Selectmen for final action. So then the Board of I'll finish it. The Board of Selectmen will determine and approve the terms of the loan agreement, including but not limited to collateral, special conditions, etc., based on the recommendations of the Economic Development Commission and the Program Manager. That answers.
I think it's a good team effort where everybody gets involved in it and see what's happening with the business that might be coming in, or maybe expanding. We've had that happen before, so that's fine. From the audience?
In the past, when this was done, was there an outside agency that used to be involved?
Most of it was actually done internal. We had, and I think it's still similar to that now, for the EDC, they try to comprise of certain members of the community which can be very helpful. Like we have an attorney that is part of the EDC. We'd like to have a person from our banking industry on the EDC. It helps us do the background and support for any of the questions that come forward. So it's very similar.
It just seems like there's a lot of sites source overseeing things. If you just manage it where it is.
We also have our finance director who can also help out to get some of that information out. I'll entertain another question from the audience.
Is there a policy governing this program in the division?
Yeah, that's what we're working on.
So it's not
Yeah.
official, okay.
Yeah, it still needs to be, well, you said you spoke with the town attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
When will that be available to the general public?
Well, before we start the program, because I put a temporary date for start, but I can push that out to, let's say, October. We'll have plenty of time to come with policy. Just want to make sure I get it for the record, because if we're marking down who spoke. So, I know Mary Ann spoke, Sean spoke, and Adrian. Okay. One more time and then,
Is there a recommended turnaround time for review applications as part of the draft? Or is it open-ended? You see in terms of businesses and what their expectations would be for application turnaround time?
I'd like to see within a 2-month period, they're bringing forth their paperwork. It gives us time to review all of it, check their business plan, check the finances, and review any other outstanding questions. So within a 2-month period, I think we can turn it around.
Provided we have all the documentation.
Providing we have all the documents. If they do everything right and follow everything in front here, then yeah, it makes it much easier for the 2-month turnaround.
How's that? You make a
If
motion?
you make the motion, if you wouldn't mind, with the start date of, let's say, October 1st.
Make a motion to appropriate $250,000 to the revolving loan fund from the American Cares and American Recovery monies to starting date of 1 October 2021.
And I will second that. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I do want to, before we continue on to the next one, I want to thank both of you because you actually drafted it up and you had some input that helped out, so I appreciate that. Thank you. The next one is an item which is called a housing hardship. What we wanted to do is put approximately $100,000 towards the housing hardship. It's a low-interest lien loan to be administered, again, by Jordan and Kelly. For eligibility items, these are similar to the housing rehab programs offered by HUD. These are also for people who are in, there's no way around what either COVID has done to them or what they can't do to come forward with more monies. I know you did speak to one of the residents in town to get some ideas of what that person is going through. And I know you put together your plan for this, so.
yes, so after last meeting, I was down with Mary Ann and we went through that initial policy or guidelines line by line. She made a lot of good points. I removed basically the word rehabilitation. We didn't want to get the program confused with the other program. So it's completely separate and the application has changed. The program is very similar, and I know Kathy was particularly worried about the program team and who would go and look at the properties and make sure everything is kosher. So we've extended that. It would include the building inspector, planning, fire marshal, myself, and then finally the Board of Selectmen would approve that. So there's a very thorough vetting process, make sure that nothing's missed or overlooked.
And we also spoke about something else, which was putting out a bid list. So if it was a specific issue, let's say it's a boiler or a roof, whatever it might be, we would put a bid out for that contractor, making sure that they're licensed and approved.
Correct, yeah. They can't, we won't even look at their bid if they don't include the unsubstantial. He was already on disability and he needs a new roof. Currently, it's just covered with tarp, basically, and he has no means to actually replace the roof. So this program would be great to help him out. And kind of the figures you see for the maximum and minimum are kind of based on some of the larger projects that could be undertaken. But I use language, again, it's up to the board's discretion. And in this particular one, it should be worded where you can even go slightly higher if need be, depending on the special circumstances.
No, I did come up with $100,000 for one because I thought this was a starting program to see what we get for a return on that if anybody was interested based on these criteria. So again, the same issues would occur where you have to have someone who's certified and gone through the bid spec and made sure that they are certified and insured for any of the work that they would be doing. So. Art, did you have any questions?
No questions on this one.
So I would do the same thing and try to put it to a same date if you were to go forward with it.
Motion to approve $100,000 for the Housing Hardship Loan Fund from the American Cares and American Recoveries monies to start on 1 October 2021.
Motion's been made, and I'll second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So those were the three for tonight. I know that there was a request by Kathy to ask if it would be possible to discuss some other nonprofits. I will say this, I would like to sit down with the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank at their next meeting if they have one soon, so I can ask questions and try to get more data to bring to the table for the Board of Selectmen.
It's in September.
Okay.
I'll give you my list of questions.
Okay, that's fine. And the second thing would be, the other one that Kathy mentioned was the one for the Veterans Coffeehouse. The only problem that I have with that is a very simple one. That this is a program for nonprofits, and the Veterans Coffeehouse is not a nonprofit. They never applied for the 501(c)(3), even though the town of Plainfield offered to help fill out the paperwork for them. And the chairperson said he didn't want to do that. So I will try to talk to him again to say that this is something that might benefit him in the future for not just this, but also for other grants that might be coming up soon. So we'll readdress this at our next meeting in sometime in September.
Can I say this? Just to keep in mind.
Yep.
These are for nonprofits that were affected by COVID-19 also.
Yep. Understood. That will conclude our discussion for old business. We go right to item F, new business. Consider an act on the refunds as requested by the tax collector totaling $1,308.94. Dorothy B. Bodo, $72.75. Holly H. Doge, $10.12. Edward S. Fitzgerald, $7.99. Owen LLC, $191.37. Daniel P. O'Neill, $9.89. Rice Landscaping LLC, $500.31. Rice Landscaping LLC, $97.43. Kevin R. Warren, $6.49. Elizabeth V. Sorrows, $14.88. Elizabeth V. Sorrows, $8.81. Kathleen R. Silveria, $5.55. Ryan A. St. Jean, $21.28. USB Leasing LT, $318.15. Dominic P. Sepieri Jr., $43.92. Grand total for requests for tax refunds is $1,308.94.
I'll make a motion to approve the tax refunds to the tax collector for $1,308.94.
I will second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Item 2, which is discuss and act on authorizing the first selectman of Plainfield Power and Authority to sign the DECD financial assistance for the intraoral site brownfield assessment project, which you have in your packet. Lucky me, I get to read the whole thing. So what this is going to allow us to do is to have the town actually authorize me to sign so we can go forward with the paperwork, and for that I will read through. It's for the Department of Economic Community Development, State of Connecticut, certified resolution of the governing body. I, Kevin Cunningham, first selectman, certified that below is a true and correct copy of a resolution duly adopted by the town of Plainfield at a meeting of its Board of Selectmen duly convened on August 23rd, 2021. And which has not been rescinded or modified in any way whatsoever and is at present in full force and effect. Whereas, pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 32763, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development is authorized to extend financial assistance for economic development projects, and whereas it is desirable and in the public interest that the town of Plainfield make an application to the state for $200,000 in order to undertake the intraoral site brownfield assessment project and to execute an assistance agreement. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the town of Plainfield Board of Selectmen. All of it, huh? This is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites of the state financial assistance imposed by Connecticut General Statute 32763. The filing of the application for the state financial assistance by Kevin Cunningham, first selectman, is in the amount not to exceed $200,000 and is hereby approved, and that Kevin Cunningham, first selectman, is directed to execute and file such application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to provide such additional information, to execute such other documents as may be required, to execute an assistance agreement with the state of Connecticut for the state financial assistance if such an agreement is offered, to execute any amendments, decisions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Plainfield. Any questions?
No questions.
Entertain a motion to approve the resolution as read.
So moved.
I will second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, we'll continue on with the next reading. This is item number 3. Discuss and act on opt-out of 8.2 Section 4B, paragraph D9 pertaining to parking spaces. This one and the next one are things that were, there's a certain steps you have to go through to opt out. When we were going through the state of Connecticut and their long discussed meetings at the Capitol and via Zoom, we were talking about how they were going to modify some of the things that were to make changes to zoning. This is one of them, and the other night the planning and zoning decided to opt out. So in front of us is a what it really is, which is 8.2 Section 4B D9, shall not require more than one parking space for a single bedroom dwelling unit and not more than 2 parking spaces for a dwelling unit with more than with 2 or more bedrooms. So currently, it tells you what it has for our current regulations, and I think we should stay with what we have. So I think at that point, what we could do is, if you agree, to entertain motion to approve the opt-out. You need a 2/3 vote to opt out and ratify.
My only question would be, is the decision been published by the PUC?
We have a 15-day period also for anybody to make any. So what we could do with the motion is we can approve the opt-out. If there's anybody that comes forward with a comment to reject it, or have a hearing on it, we could do that. But we have decided to opt out if we so desire.
I'm just going by the...
Yeah, I know there's a nice list for us to do. And that both of those were published up to the newspaper
I want to say it's in the next edition.
for the.
Lindsay's.
Okay.
That's what it was already published. Okay, I'll make a motion to opt out of 8-2, Section 4B, D, 9, pertaining to parking spaces.
I will second that motion. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 4, discuss and act on opt-out of Section 8.2, Section 6 pertaining to accessory apartments. And there is also a longer version of that within our packet. The state has enacted legislation imposing all towns pertaining to accessory apartments unless a town undertakes a process to opt out. An accessory apartment is defined in the legislation as a separate dwelling unit that A, is located on the same lot as a principal dwelling unit of greater square footage, and B, has cooking facilities, and C, complies with or is otherwise exempt from any applicable building code, fire code, and health and safety regulations. There's other things talking about down below, which is really the part that really troubles me the most, which it says accessory apartments would be allowed as of right. I won't even go any further. It's just, we have our own zoning regulations that will handle this case by case. And I think that's really the way to go.
Make a motion to opt out of 8-2, Section 6, pertaining to accessory apartments.
I will second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 5, review and approve the ordinance and special act of the town of Plainfield printed handbook as revised. Okay, this is going to take a minute or two just to review this, but it's worth it. For anybody who goes into the town clerk's office and goes in to ask for a copy of an ordinance, they are available, but you have to go in and have to go through the process of trying to do that very well. Sometimes it's a hunt and peck to figure things out. The booklet that was put together to try to make it so it's easier to get access to, it was called the Ordinances and Special Acts of the Town of Plainfield, and that was as of January 2009. This is the copy that I took. And this is a copy, the original copy that you pointed to help out to understand. I want people to understand we're not looking to change the ordinances. The ordinances as they are written in the town clerk's vault are fine. What we're having to do is just ask if it's possible to review the ordinances in this booklet. And by doing so, the Board of Selectmen talked 9 months ago, maybe 10, about doing that. And you have a copy of all of that over there. And you and June went through and helped out and put together a packet in your packet, number 5.
Not me. I had nothing to do with it.
Well, you drove him in. Oh, no, you drove with him. But
No, he spent hours on this by
yes,
himself.
and it was hours
Yeah.
and hours. And I
Yeah.
think that the end result is something that you definitely want to take a look at, because the unfortunate part is there are typos. There were also numbering issues. There was also things with data information of who was selectman and or who was the clerk during a lot of those earlier ones. So that data is added into that handbook. So why are we going through all this whole process? Because we want to be able to be as complete as possible, matching exactly what we have in the town clerk's vault. And the other part that goes with that is we'd love to be able to put this out to the public. And by doing so, put it up online. I think it's a big advantage when you can go online and take a look at an ordinance and see what it looks like. And then if you have questions, you can always come in and ask. But I think that's what the whole intent really is. So if I were to look at... So there were a list of date changes, and there's a list, if anybody would be willing, if they want to look at them, they're more than welcome. There's a list of ordinances, what the numbers are, what the meeting date information to update that date that were changed in there. There's also a list of all the ordinance numbers itself that may have changed. You said it was ordinance number 54 that really changed the numbers, and that was...
It was the old ordinance 53.
Mm-hmm.
That had two ordinances on it.
Yep.
One for the dog track, and one for the numbering system, how to number them.
Yep.
So when you renumbered them, that became 54, because two ordinances should be
Together.
the same. Right.
And then there was typos, not big typos, they're very, very small things that I can see, but they were typos, so you really want to be inclusive as possible, put everything in together. A misspelling of Selectmen, it's, which should be after which, and there's a whole list here if everyone wanted to see. 3, 4, 5.
Do you want me to speak a second?
Sure, I would love that, because
The meeting dates on the ordinance, in the ordinance book here, there were a number of meeting dates missing. Some of them were not meeting dates, they were the approved date. So I went to the vault and found all the meeting dates and listed all the meeting dates. There was only one that was wrong. It was written as 1974, it was supposed to be 72. And there's one that I couldn't find at all in the vault. I don't know about that. But those would show all the meeting dates. And like he said, the typos were in the book itself, not in the ordinance, in the record books. It was just in this printed book. So like he said, those are just basic, easy changes. And the numbering change is to go according with the ordinance that states how to number them in consecutive.
sequencing.
Yeah, I forgot that. I'll tell you real quick. That each ordinance of the town of Plainfield be numbered chronologically based on the date of passage. So they got off because they were renumbering amendments at the same number, like 103 had 3 ordinances because they had 103 plus an amendment plus an amendment later on. So it got out of the chronological order of numbering. So that's all that is renumbering. And actually you like this, Louisa, in the record books, they stopped numbering them at some point. There's no ordinance number, it just says ordinance pertaining to. And in the early days, they had numbers written in the book, what they were, but then they stopped numbering them. And the other thing with the Selectmen, is when I talked to Rich Cody, the lawyer, he said that's not even necessary in it. So it's just a convenience to see.
I think that's a great word, it's the convenience. The convenience of putting it online is one thing. But then if someone wants to print off ordinance, ordinance number 80, if they print it off ordinance number 80, they can actually match it up word for what's in the vault once we put this forward. So I think that's kind of a thing it's very helpful.
And just so you know, there are things that we still have to go over that may have to be changed from the original ordinances.
Right.
I think you would found some too, other than typos.
So this would be the first step to that, and what we look to do is if we can approve the ordinance and special acts of the town of Plainfield as revised. That would be the way to go, and then we can start getting it prepared for putting it up online.
I was just going to say,
Yes.
I have a lot of questions.
Right.
Okay, so first of all, I do appreciate, I understand how much work that is. And I know that's a lot of work, and I had a conversation with Kevin. My plan was always to have the ordinances codified by either a company or an attorney's office, so that they would go through everything and take out the old and revise, put in the new. You know, historically, those records that you looked at come from the Selectmen's office, and I'm not pointing out any Selectmen, I'm just saying, you know, when the Selectmen draw up an ordinance, or the Economic Development Committee or the building office or whatever draws up an ordinance and then presents it to people for voting, when it gets approved, if it gets approved, that gets stamped, you know, those minutes get stamped in the town clerk's office with that ordinance. Sometimes it didn't have dates, sometimes it was signed, sometimes it wasn't. I'm sure you saw that. So again, a lot of work. But my concern is, and I know you said it, Kevin, but first of all, did the town attorney actually review each and every change that's being made? He or she or whatever?
Yes.
And approved those changes and said it didn't affect the meaning of any of the ordinances?
Correct.
Okay. So I just want it on record that any changes that you are suggesting to make will not in any way change the meaning. And I'm only being redundant because if some of you remember, we had a grammatical error corrected by a finance director a number of years ago, and that brought the town of Plainfield to court because what he thought was a correction, they thought was a change of meaning. And so I just want the town to be very, very careful that none of these corrections change any of the meaning, because these ordinances were approved by the electors of the town. And you cannot change anything unless they approve that. So that brings me to the question, why aren't you bringing this to a town meeting?
The town attorney had said in advice that we didn't have to do that because of the typos that we're fixing. He reviewed each one of them and said we're okay.
And I see the corrections of the spelling and little things like that, maybe adding dates, but when you're adding dates of meetings, are you also adding the effective date of the ordinance or the enactment date, or you're simply adding the
No.
date of the meeting?
The date of the
Just the
meeting.
date of the meeting?
From
and
the
who was
books in the
selected?
fall, the date of the meeting.
Okay.
They're all different. Some were enacted upon passage, some were 15 days after. So if you have all the meeting dates and at the end of the ordinance it says 15 days after, you can do the math. So it's all meeting dates
Okay.
of the actual meeting. You know.
Okay. So,
And to answer your question, Louisa, about the typos, there's still a list in here of things that could change meanings that we have to sit and discuss
because that would have to go to town meeting.
Right.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
These are simple.
These are just changes to the book, that was the convenience book, not to the town ordinances themselves. There's no changes to that.
Okay. Okay. So is there going to be, in this new book, is there going to be any, I don't know, sheet or something in there, comment that says the date of this meeting and that simple changes were made, but there is no change to the meaning of any of the ordinances?
Should be.
You know, it should be, because it was done when you did the initial book in 2009. We would also note the same thing of this meeting.
Well, that,
And also that it does not change any meanings within the ordinances, because we're not changing ordinances.
in 2009, there were no changes made, it was just typed
Right.
from the previous ordinance book, which was bound we didn't have enough money to find another one, and so we wanted it loose leaf, and we had a company retype the ordinances exactly like they were. Okay.
Who typed them originally?
The selectmen's office or the departments or
No,
whoever.
I mean from those red,
Oh, Joe Gillis was in, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who the printer was, but
It-
Joe Gillis.
because I did go back to the books.
The little books.
No, the record books, the
Oh,
red,
right,
the
right.
big red record books. And I took the ordinances in red for those typos in this, they weren't there. So they were in, when they typed up this book, for the convenience of people to read, that's where the typos came in.
The little books, the little printed bound books that are in the town clerk's office. Okay, so there's several bound books in the town clerk's office that some printer did years ago, and that's where that came from. So who knows, what happens, but as long, I'm comfortable with it as long as it's just spelling errors and simple things like that. I just wanted to make sure that that was it. I have one other question. I know that the old book, and you said it's available to people, when I was the town clerk, we were charging $10 for a book. We didn't put it online simply because we knew there was a lot of confusion with what one was effective and what one was old. If you put this in online, is that what you're going to do? Put it online on the website, on the town website, so it will be available. Will you put the old one on too, or just the new one?
If we put the old one on, then it makes some confusion, because people would ask why. So I think if we just stick to this with the date that we're approving it, effective as of this date and from this meeting, I think we'll be okay. The other thing is, like you said before, we're really not touching ordinances. That's another meeting that we have to still get into if there's any word changes that could affect an ordinance. So that's the next wave of fun, I would say. But I also, by the way, I do appreciate your input, because we want to make sure that we're clear to the public, that we understand what we're trying to accomplish. It is not changing ordinances, it's just for the supportive handbook that was comparative, would have been comparative to actual ordinances. Now we think with the typo fixes, the number of fixes, that we're actually going to be able to do that. And we'd still be able, if anybody wants to come in for a hard copy, if they can't print at home or for whatever reason, they can still come in and purchase.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your answers. Thank you for your work.
Well, while we're asking for public comment on it, anybody else have anything to say on it? Yes.
Publishing strategy for when it goes online, is it going
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you.
the publishing strategy for when it goes online, is it just going to be a very long HTML page, or is it going to be accessible as a readable PDF?
I think we'd like to do both with a full copy, and then we can split it up with an index to each item, to link to each item. It makes it easier that way, because if I'm going online to take a look at an ordinance, I don't want to print out the whole thing every time.
Yes.
So I think it would be prudent to do the full book, in case they do want to print it, and then an index page with each one, so if they want to do individuals, they can do that.
Did I print one on drive that way? Individual?
I think so. Yeah. If I can remember correctly, yeah, you did. Yep. Okay. All right.
I have one last. So, is there going to be a way to do number, summing of the ordinance and that sort of thing? Is it going to be in an HTML format, or will it also be available possibly on spreadsheet database format? You can actually,
I think that's to be discussed. We have to look at how we'd be able to put it out there.
Because as a public, I would kind of use the filter out the words that I want to hunt down as opposed to having to wade through the entire document. And I would just want to be informed so that we're going to particular subset of ordinances. So if you have a spreadsheet with database format, it's easier to make the filter for the.
Would that include if you went to find and you just put in the word driveway, it would pull up all of them?
Well, if you put it in the full file, you could do that. Absolutely. And then if you find 3 or 4 that you want to read through, you can also go to the individual ones, and after that, take a look. Okay? So we're looking to entertain a motion to approve the ordinances and special acts of the town of Plainfield printed handbook as revised.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's part 1 of the huge series of work. We're going to work next on actual ordinances. So that is actually all we have for the meeting, except for we have a other section. And the only thing I really have immediately for the other section is, I know we just went through a tropical storm. We didn't do too bad. We did get a chance to go in the EOC to take a look at how the operation goes. For the most part, it went fairly well. Before the meeting started, I checked, there was only 14 houses which are out of power, and they're still working through the night to clean those up, so they did a very good job of working through all those issues, and I do want to thank the Eversource for that. The only other item that I have on the table here is that, just as a reminder, for those who are interested, there's a Patriots Day Candlelight ceremony Saturday, September 11th at 7 p.m. at the Plainfield Veterans Park next to the Town Hall, as we remember the victims of September 11th, 2001. And they plan on unveiling a new monument honoring all those who lost their lives on 9/11. And if you have any other questions or info, you can always contact the commander for the post 5446. And you can see on the flyers of his numbers there if you wanted to give him a call. With that,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I will second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Time is 7:57. Thank you.